Here are the compliments that might be killing your career in internal communications. Your newsletter looks great. Good job organizing the social event. Thanks for putting that new button on the front page of the intranet. Now maybe you're thinking, Joanna, what the hell is wrong with you? These are lovely compliments. I'd be happy to get these. But I reckon these kind of compliments are hurting your career. Because look at what these are praising you for executing on tasks, for doing stuff, right, rather than solving problems. You'll get a reputation in the company as someone who does a lot of stuff, who creates beautiful newsletters, who can put that new button on the front of the intranet. But here's the problem. While these tasks are important, if they are primarily what you're known for, then you're going to find yourself stuck on that hamster wheel of just churning out stuff. You won't be solving problems. You won't be increasing your reputation. You won't be getting the value or the recognition that you want. You're just that person that does stuff. And you won't be able to become the strategic communicator that you really want to be. And here's what no one tells you about becoming a strategic communicator. It's not about being smarter. It's not about working longer hours. It's not about having a qualification. It's about being more curious and more intentional in your approach. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. I'm going to talk through two different communication professionals. One is non-strategic and one is strategic. They get very different compliments, and I want to see what you think in terms of where you are now and which one of these communicators you want to be. So let's talk about what is strategic communication. What is a strategic communicator? What does that look like? How do they approach their work differently? So if that's your jam, you're totally in the right place. This video and all my content is free. Your only cost of entry is to hit that subscribe button below. Help me grow this channel to 10,000 subscribers. If you like my content and it's helpful to you, I'd love your support. Okay, let's get stuck in. Let's say you are that person getting those kinds of compliments for all the stuff that you do, and you feel a little bit like you're stuck on that hamster wheel, that task wheel. You don't know how to get off. And you go on LinkedIn and you see consultants and thought leaders saying, just operate more strategically. But that's really not very helpful because you don't know really what that looks like. What does that mean? For me, when I think about being strategic, it simply means coming out of the weeds and looking at the bigger picture, focusing on what you're trying to achieve rather than the stuff that you're just doing right now. It means thinking about all that stuff that's on your to-do list today or for the week. How is that connected to an overall objective? What is that helping me to achieve? How is my current to-do list linked to my communication strategy, which in turn is linked to my business strategy? And ultimately, being strategic means making very intentional, deliberate decisions about where you're going to put your time and your energy, what you're going to work on and what you're not going to work on. Strategy is all about trade-off. So all of your work is leading up to the achievement of your strategic goals. That is being strategic. Let's look at a couple of examples now of communicators who are operating unstrategically and strategically. And I think through their approach to the work, you'll get to see what exactly do I mean. And you'll also start to identify the types of things you could start doing differently if you want to become more strategic in your work. All right, let's start with Barry. I don't know who Barry is. Let's invent him for the purpose of this video. Barry is not a very strategic communicator right now. He is known in his company for being able to handle any workload that's thrown at him. He works long hours. He's very diligent. He takes pride in his work, and his stakeholders love him because he says yes to everything. He will do whatever they ask. He creates beautiful content. He turns it around really fast. But guess what? Barry is really, really tired. And he's pretty fed up too because he feels a bit like he just takes orders from people around the business all day. And he's constantly so busy and he's always firefighting. So he's racing to send an all-staff email because someone said they need it right now. He is saying yes to every request that lands in his inbox from stakeholders. And his to-do list is getting longer and longer and longer. And at his monthly check-in with his boss, he's proudly reporting back on how many meetings he attended and how many newsletters he produced and how many bits of content he made. And Barry is very busy and he's doing very nice work, but he's not strategic because he's not operating to a plan. There is no end game here for all the work he's delivering. It's not connected to any objectives. It's nothing got to do with what's in the communication strategy. It's literally just what people are asking for. He's churning out stuff all day long. He's really busy and he's really tired. But for what? What's the point? What's he achieving? And Barry is doing that thing that we're all guilty of, where he has convinced himself that he's too busy to slow down and think about what's the purpose of all this. And the problem with Barry is because he is so efficient and he's so friendly and he never says no, his workload only gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And as a result, he's getting more tired, and he's also getting kind of fed up because he's not really getting any meaningful recognition. He doesn't feel valued. He can't demonstrate the impact of his work because it's literally just churning out stuff. Does Barry sound a little bit like you? I was certainly a bit of a Barry early in my career. If this is you, don't panic, don't feel any shame. We have all been there. I'm here to help you. Maybe you feel stuck right now, but let's look at another communicator who operates in a very different way. Let's start looking at how things are different. Let's talk about Laura. Again, an imaginary person. Laura is a strategic internal communicator. She works in a company very similar to Barry's. She's at the same level of seniority, but Laura gets very different compliments. She hears things like, "Oh, you really helped us solve that thorny business problem." She hears things like, "Our employee attrition rates dropped 10% because of you." Or, "Thanks to all the work you did with our leaders, employee awareness of our strategy has increased from 45% to 75% in the last 6 months. These compliments are very different to the ones that Barry got, aren't they? Because they're focused on outcomes and results and changes rather than just making stuff or producing outputs. Laura is being recognized for driving business outcomes, for creating strategic alignment, for solving business problems. She's being recognized for her strategic contribution rather than her tactical execution. That's the big difference here. But how is she doing this? What does it look like? Let's have a look at how Laura approaches her job. Now, Laura handles all the same kind of requests that Barry does. Her inbox is mental and people ask her for stuff all day long. But her approach to handling these requests is totally different. So Barry just says, yeah, and he adds it on his list. Laura does not do that. Laura engages her curiosity instead anytime she gets a request. She will ask stakeholders things like, what business problem are you trying to solve with this communication? She will try to get clear on what is the communication's objective. She will ask things like, who needs to know this information and why? And why is this important right now? And simply by asking these questions, Laura is adopting an advisory role with stakeholders. She's helping them to think about what are they trying to achieve and why, and what will success look like and how would you measure that? And then she can advise them on the best approach to take. And often the best approach is for them to go off and do some communication by themselves without her direct input. The other thing that Laura does very differently to Barry is she is constantly using and referring to her internal communication strategy in her role. She is very clear on what the objectives are in her strategy that she needs to deliver. And she uses this all the time to figure out what to prioritize, what to focus on, and what to say no to. Laura knows that she can't do everything for everyone, and she doesn't want to. She also knows that employees have a limited amount of attention, so she can't say yes to every request that comes in because it's not going to make any sense. She wants to draw employees' attention to stuff that really matters, stuff that they really need to know, stuff that is really tightly linked to business priorities, rather than every single little project that's happening in the company. And in her monthly check-ins with her boss, Laura is not going on and on about how many slide decks she created or how many meetings she helped put on or how many social events she ran. Instead, she is talking about how her communication activities and her campaigns are really helping to change employee behavior and drive business outcomes. So what is different in the organization because of communication? And she's constantly referring back to the objectives in the communication strategy, showing how all of her day-to-day work is linked to those objectives, which is driving business success. And what's interesting is you could maybe argue that Laura is less busy. She is not as frantic as Barry. She's not running around. She's not as exhausted at the end of the day. She's doing a lot less tactical work. And yet her impact is so much bigger. She's seen more as a trusted advisor or a trusted partner in the business rather than just a pair of hands to churn out stuff. And when we think about Barry and we think about Laura, I mean, they couldn't be operating more differently. And I feel like this is a good way to understand Barry as an unstrategic communicator and Laura as a strategic communicator. It's kind of clear to see the difference. It makes it a bit more practical, doesn't it? So Barry is really measuring his success in how much work he churns out, how many tasks that he does. And Laura is thinking more of her success in terms of the changes and the results that she's bringing and the progress she's making towards the objectives in her strategy. Barry is the yes man. He says yes to anyone that comes along, especially senior stakeholders. Will you do this for me? Will you make me this poster? Will you run this event? He says yes, yes, yes. Laura doesn't do that. She gets really curious and really thoughtful and helps stakeholders to think about what they're trying to achieve, what their objective is, and whether it's a good investment of her time to be directly involved, or rather do they just need to do the work themselves. So you can see that Barry is very reactive. He's reacting to requests and he's living in his inbox. Laura is a lot more proactive. She has planned out her work based on the strategy. Barry's executing on tasks and Laura is solving problems. There's the big difference, right? Now, if you're listening to this and you want to channel your inner Laura, but maybe you feel a little bit nervous about how to start or how can you begin to make these changes, here is the thing I want you to know. Curiosity is your best friend when you want to become a strategic communicator. The next time a stakeholder comes to you and asks you to churn out a tactic, so they want you to make something, send that email for me, or make this slide deck look pretty for me, or whatever they ask you to do, just breathe, just pause, slow down, and just don't say yes straight away. Get curious instead. Try a couple of these questions. You can write these down and have them stuck on the wall beside your screen. What business problem are we trying to solve here? What's the outcome you're trying to achieve? What would success look like if we sent this communication? Who really needs to know this information and why? These are really simple questions, and I really want you to know that asking these types of questions doesn't make you difficult. It's not confrontational. It's about adding value. It's about making sure that you are spending your limited time and energy on stuff that really matters. Now, moving from the Barry to the Laura is quite a journey. It takes time. You're not suddenly going to wake up tomorrow and you're magically Laura. So be kind to yourself on the journey. And the really simple way to get started is just to ask some more questions, just to get curious and get a little bit more intentional in your work. I would love to know from you in the comments, where are you right now on the scale of Barry to Laura? Let me know where you are, and I would love to know one simple step you're going to take right now to start becoming more of a Laura. I do read all the comments. I really look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you the next time.